I found out my wife was sleeping with her boss, so I sent a cake with their photo to her office. I'm 32, my wife is 30. We've been married for 5 years, but over the past year she's become a completely different person. When we met, we both already had our careers going, and it seemed like we had the same values. I went to vocational school for a technical degree. Before I could prove my skills and build my reputation in coding, I busted my ass at shitty entry-level positions. But eventually, my professional reputation became worth more than any diploma. My wife has a master's degree and works in management. Back then, I thought we had this friendly rivalry thing going on. Early in our relationship, I was constantly complaining about middle managers. I saw them as obstacles between me and getting tasks done. My wife thought middle management was necessary for distributing people and resources. Personally, I had bad luck. I kept getting stuck with a string of terrible managers who treated developers like replaceable cogs. They set unrealistic deadlines, promised clients a ton of features, and constantly expanded project scopes. I'd tell my wife about every stupid decision my manager made. She always took his side, and she'd never even met the guy. "He sees things you don't see," she'd say. After about a year together, I realized I needed to stop telling her about work. Unless it was about weekends or raises, I always got the feeling she was irritated by the fact that I didn't have a college degree or advanced degree. Before the wedding, she kept pushing for it, but when I laid out the potential student loan debt for her, she backed off. We both got married with almost no debt and were earning about the same amount. About 2 years ago, I got a job at a company where the owner talked to me directly. He saw my value and potential. Now I'm making 50% more than my wife. And my manager is a great guy. I'm genuinely comfortable working with him. He's an excellent leader. The first 4 years of marriage were great. I wasn't complaining about managers, and she wasn't choking on the fact that I wasn't dumping thousands of bucks into a piece of paper. We had a good time, went on dates a few times a month. We had shared hobbies, we cooked together, read books, and watched movies. When the first lockdown started, we both went remote. We have a nice house with 3 spare bedrooms for future kids. We'd already turned one into my office. During lockdown, we made a second office for my wife. We both worked remotely just fine. I'd get up, make breakfast, shower, shave, put on a suit, and go to my home office. I hate suits and ties, but it put me in work mode. My wife would just roll out of bed, have breakfast, brush her teeth, throw on a t-shirt and sweatpants, and go to her office to play Candy Crush between emails. I guess I see working from home as work, and she sees working from home as, well, relaxing with breaks for work tasks. Strange how proximity can create distance. She has several calls a day, and I know this because she keeps her door wide open and I hear everything. I have 1 call a day, and it's short. During mine, I close the door. 5 months ago, she said it hurt her feelings that I closed the door for my daily meeting. I explained that it helps me stay calm and focused. She claimed she felt like I was hiding something. I tried to keep up our shared hobbies, but she'd brush me off, saying we see each other all day anyway. I should have insisted, but I didn't. I thought lockdown was temporary. Probably a mistake. Things got really bad when her company partially reopened the office. She jumped at the chance to be in the 50% who returned to the socially distanced office. I don't judge. I miss the office too, but my company didn't reopen theirs, and as long as I have access to coffee meetings, it wasn't really necessary. I think a few co-workers really influenced her. She started staying late after work, hanging out with them, drinking at someone's house. I'd ask, tried to learn more, but she became secretive and closed off. She got colder and colder. At some point, it felt like I had a roommate, not a wife. Last month, one weekend, she put her old iPad on the table and said, "Can you wipe this? I want to give it to my niece." I shrugged. I'd done this kind of thing for family before, so I didn't think much of it. She left for another corporate party and I turned on the tablet. Maybe my wife got too cocky or thought I wouldn't check and would just do a factory reset. But I checked, and I saw photos and video messages with her boss in the messenger. They'd been hooking up for 2 months. I can't describe the feeling, like the blood in my veins turned to ice. It was like that scene from Equilibrium where the polygraph flatlines. I copied everything, uploaded it to the cloud I use for personal projects, separate from work, and started looking for a lawyer. At first, I didn't confront her. I didn't even understand what I was going to do. There was this weird feeling in my body, like I was numb and walking through water. She either didn't notice or didn't care. By that point, things were already dead in the bedroom. We were really living like roommates. I contacted a lawyer and he said to keep gathering information and keep my mouth shut. He advised hiring a private investigator and recommended a good one. For the last 4 weeks, we collected evidence, and he prepared divorce papers. Be patient, he kept saying. And with her indifference, that wasn't hard at first. Yesterday, the lawyer said almost everything was ready. Our state recognizes fault in divorce, and I had photos, videos, messages, and an almost guaranteed outcome. But yesterday evening, something happened to me. My wife came home late as usual. I don't even remember what she said, but I snapped. I said I hope screwing her boss was worth it. She got mean, nasty, vindictive. She said I hadn't been emotionally supportive, that I relax at home all day even though I bring in the lion's share of money, that I don't measure up to her intellectually, even though I work in a complex technical field. I said I have a lawyer, and she laughed and said my bluff was pathetic, that I'm not going anywhere anyway. And even if I do divorce her, she'll get half my salary. And if I stay, at least I can sleep with her sometimes, so I better not ruin everything. This was a different person. I told her this isn't a marriage. She laughed again. Honey, it's the 21st century. A woman can have her cake and eat it too. She laughed again and went to bed. I texted my boss that I needed a week off to deal with a family problem. He approved, of course. I slept on the couch in my office. In the morning, when I was getting dressed, she left, just throwing out "Don't wait up." I went to the lawyer, and he said the papers were ready. A process server was with him, and the lawyer asked how I wanted to serve the papers. I told him my idea. The lawyer, bless him, laughed and said, "Better not." He said many people want to make a show or get revenge when serving papers, and he always talks everyone out of it. The judge has no sense of humor. He explained this could cost me alimony or part of the assets. I didn't care. Her words pissed me off. I wanted her to burn. The lawyer tried to talk me out of it, but seeing how serious I was, he gave up. The process server heard my idea, also cracked up and said, "You're my hero." I had to make a special rush order with extra payment for urgency, send the server to pick up the order and serve it along with the papers at my wife's office. The server told me what happened afterwards. He came to her office with a large box and documents, found my wife standing and laughing with a group of colleagues, and asked her name. She confirmed and asked what this was about. He put the box on the table nearby and opened it. Inside was a cake that could have any image printed on it in frosting. I didn't even know you could do that until this morning. On the cake was a photo of my wife in her boss's arms, dressed but crystal clear what they were doing. On top was the inscription, "Here's your cake. Eat it." The server placed the documents next to it. "You've been served," he said. Then came her scream. At least 8 people in the office saw the cake. My wife went ballistic and swept the box off the table. It fell on the carpet, but the image was still visible. Several of her colleagues started yelling at her, and she burst into tears and screamed. The server hastily retreated. My phone was blowing up, but I just sent her to voicemail, not reading her messages. She didn't come home, but her mother texted that she'll stay with her for now. The euphoric high from the cake was intense, but with every passing hour, I'm starting to think about the lawyer's words. Did I screw everything up? Update 1. I'm blown away by the amount of support I've received over the past week. I'm still on leave from work. My boss decided to give me 2 weeks instead of the one I asked for. Good man. I've already split our savings in half, put my half in an account in my name, changed the auto payment on the mortgage, froze credit cards, and done everything else the lawyer advised regarding family finances. First off, we don't have kids. Second, I'm seeing a therapist. Found a specialist who works well with infidelity aftermath. Been to him twice and feel much more stable. There are still weird dips, but not the swinging from one extreme to another like before. After the cake incident, I now follow my lawyer's advice in everything without question. He said I can be happy or I can be right, meaning either I follow his recommendations or I suffer. Now I understand what he meant. He said if my wife wants to come home, I legally can't kick her out, but I should record all our interactions. She's still living with her mother, hasn't come back home but wanted to come over Saturday to talk. The lawyer said okay, but better if the conversation happens at his office, with her lawyer and mine present. I wrote to her by email, of course, and she replied that she doesn't have a lawyer. Then my lawyer said, if the meeting is at home, you need witnesses and recording. I told my wife these conditions. She agreed, so I invited 2 mutual friends, and the 3 of us put our phones on the table, ready to record. She came and tried to awkwardly hug me, but I raised my hand and started recording. When we sat down at the kitchen table, she actually apologized, said she felt like she was in a movie, not in control of her own life. But it seemed exciting to her, gave her an adrenaline rush. She asked if I wanted to know why. I said I didn't care anymore. She decided she was obligated to explain and told me. When the office reopened, she got close with 3 female coworkers, each a few years older, 2 divorced. They got in her head, convinced her she deserved better. They constantly asked about our family life. The leader of this trio started psychoanalyzing me from afar based on my wife's stories. My wife told them about my problems with managers early in my career, and that leader decided I felt threatened by educated people. She told my wife I was a submissive male and she needed a dominant man, that if I found out about the affair, I'd yell and roar but then submit. My wife is still working, but barely. The cake was seen by my wife herself, these 3 witches, her boss lover, and according to her, 2 other employees. The boss immediately broke off the affair, told her to only communicate with him by email, and if she ever comes into his office alone, he'll immediately call a witness. The 3 witches instantly turned on her and publicly trashed her for what she did. The others, according to her, didn't want to get involved in this soap opera, so nobody went to HR. She said this sharp 180-degree turn immediately brought her out of the fog a bit. She looked very depressed and said she needed to ask me for $5,000. I didn't understand. She had money. I specifically left her her share. She's living with her mother. No major expenses. Turns out the main one from that trio and the 2 other witches want money for their silence. They're blackmailing her with a deadline, otherwise HR will learn all the details. She was begging for help. I told her there's no going back to normal life. Everything will change, and if she caves now, they'll demand more later. Better for her to report herself, her boss, and her colleague friends. That gives her a better chance than sitting and waiting for the blow. She hesitated and wavered, but eventually asked the main question. What about us? I said there is no us anymore. It's over, and she better hire a lawyer for the divorce ASAP. The most I can do is advise her how to handle the work situation. But most likely she'll have to change careers. I also said she needs a therapist herself, because a person who goes from laughing in my face to begging for help in a week definitely needs to work through her own issues. She mentioned the cake and all that. I replied that yes, I know what I'm talking about, since I'm seeing a specialist myself. She left shortly after. I don't know if she'll follow my advice or try to pay the blackmailers. Update 2. It's already been a week since I returned to work. Feeling much better, still seeing my individual therapist. And last weekend I went for a relaxing drive on country roads and met a dog breeder. Stopped by out of curiosity. Guy was Asian, and he bred Asian dog breeds I hadn't seen before. He said they're incredibly loyal and brave. After playing with several puppies, I'm thinking of going back and buying one, though they cost a fortune. My wife was always fine with a dog, but she never liked any breed. Anyway, my wife still hasn't come home and hasn't tried to contact me directly, but she did find a lawyer. My lawyer called and said something like, "Get ready, you're going to a marriage counselor." I said I don't want to. Divorce is inevitable anyway. He agreed, but then added, in a normal situation he'd tell her lawyer to fuck off. But now he needs to show me as a reasonable person, so I have to agree to reasonable requests. This is why you need to listen to your lawyer. If I'd held back from that burst of anger, I could have refused this meeting. He gave me instructions. Don't admit fault. Don't agree I messed up anywhere. Don't agree to anything. Don't even promise a second chance. Just be present. If I still want the divorce, answer neutrally. Don't yell. Don't get angry. Don't accuse. The meeting, if you can call it that, was on Zoom. Me at my house, wife at her mother's, therapist in the office. It was funny. The therapist tried to split the blame equally. Surely you understand that distance could create a need. I said I disagree. Two people create a rift in a marriage. Yes, her and her boss. If you hold on to the past, you can't move toward a bright future. Yeah, the past is a great indicator of the future, and so on. I won't pretend I was playing some psychological game or outmaneuvered and destroyed them both. No, I just didn't engage more than required. For 2 hours, she and the therapist tried to get me to take even 10% of the blame so they could say, "See, this is both your faults. Now let's fix everything." At the end of the session, the therapist asked why I was so cold. I said something like, infidelity can cause the same psychological damage as PTSD. The therapist replied, "Yes, I've heard something like that." Time was running out. I was about to leave when my wife asked if I'd agree to another meeting next weekend. I said, "I don't think that's a good idea." Then she started begging and asking what she needs to do for me to agree. I said, "Good night," and logged off. Now I'm waiting for what other reasonable request will appear that I can't formally decline, just so the lawyer can present me as a balanced person who had a single burst of rage, not a constant behavior problem.